A very, very warm welcome to another episode of 5 Unscripted. Today's episode is going to be jam-packed with awesome conversation and our wonderful guest, Mr. Thulare Matlaba. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Nervous, I guess.
Nah, I hope you're not nervous. I mean, we were having a great conversation just before we went live. But
Yes, no, we won't tell anyone about that conversation.
Yeah, I can't do no small talk, no small talk. I'm not with the small talk. Can't be with the small talk.
So Mr. Matlaba is ultimately here in his capacity as the global brand manager of Inscape Education Group. And today, before we even speak about Inscape, I just want to know, how has this awesome spring weather been treating you?
It's been hot.
It's been hot.
There's no other description. It's been hot. It's been messing with my, what do they call them? Circadian rhythms. You know these things people talk about.
I need to get into those chakra terms properly now.
Hey, those things are difficult. But listen, I welcome the warm weather. I'm a farm boy, by origin from the Northwest. So hot weather is normal weather. Although I won't lie, I love winter.
I'm a winter baby,
Yes.
so I can't relate. I don't like this weather very much, but I'm living for it for the outfits, just for the outfits.
No, listen, winter keeps me. I'm a very plain dresser, so winter makes my life easy. I don't have to think.
Yeah,
Everything's in the cupboard. You can wear a jacket 10 times.
and
There's a
it's
jacket
okay
'cause it's cold.
It's cold. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
love it. Absolutely awesome. Now let's get into this conversation. I'd like us to start with Inscape Education Group. Now, tell me a little bit about what it's like working there, because I'm aware that this is not the only position you've held at the institution. So, what other things you've done? I think you've been a campus director at the
Yeah.
Midrand campus and such. So, just the experience and what it's all about, what it's like being there, and of course now in your capacity as global brand manager.
So yeah, the short version of the story is I transferred from the University of Pretoria to study at Inscape. So my first degree in interior design is actually from Inscape, right? That's back when Inscape was a house in Pretoria, right? Quite a number of years ago. I'm 38 and I graduated, I think, when I was 26. So I was a student, and then after that I worked in FMCG, fast moving consumer goods. And then, I came to Inscape as the campus director for the Midrand campus. The CEO at the time asked me to just come and, do some work with the campus. She knew my love for the institution. So I came, had no desire to ever be a campus director. Back in the day, we called it campus principal. So when I would go home, my mom would say, "My son is a principal." And I'd be like, "Ish, ma, not that kind of principal." People would think I'm in secondary education or something. So I did that for 2 years, moved the campus from Rosebank to Midrand to where it currently is situated. And then I left and I went into the NGO space where I worked as a marketing manager. At the time, I had made, like I said, the switch into the FMCG space, so sales and marketing was in my blood. I did the work of being a campus principal / campus director for 2 years. And then, I left, went into the NGO sector, and then I got a call saying, "We need a global brand manager." And I was like, whew, that title heavy.
It is heavy. Global.
Global. And that was just because at the time, Inscape was stretching its legs into the UAE, specifically in Dubai, right? So we had a skills training center there in Dubai in D3, the design district. So that was part of the global. And look, it still continues even though we've moved out of Dubai. COVID and all of that made things difficult there. So we moved back into South Africa or pulled the resources back in. But we're always exploring international collaborations, international opportunities. So we have a relationship with Thomas More University in Belgium, for example. So their interior design students come and spend a semester with us, and our students go and spend a semester there. So it's usually about 1 or 2, sometimes 3 students going in either direction. But I'm the global brand manager, and what I basically spend my days doing is living, talking, breathing, existing, pulsing,
As
everything
you
Inscape.
should. I love it. I mean, I think when I first found out that you also started off, as an interior designer, I asked myself, isn't this a predominantly female-dominated kind of industry?
Yeah.
And what it was like for you as a male to go into such an industry in South Africa in this climate, where gender roles are constantly being flipped upside down on a daily basis in the modern society. What's it been like in the space? Or are you seeing more males also come into the space, and just your general overall experience?
So, was the industry comprised mainly of women? Maybe in the industry we saw. And what I mean by that is, so if you studied at university, right, at a public university, you would have graduated as an interior architect.
Yes.
But if you study at a private institution, we could not use the word architect, so we were called interior designers. So you would often find that men in the interior space were working in traditional architectural firms as interior architects. So now the public was not always aware of that, variance in terms. And then what you generally found, right, was that predominantly women had studied interior decorating, but they were termed interior designers, right? And there's a distinction even between an interior decorator and interior designer, because an interior designer is actually an interior architect, whereas an interior decorator is a decorator,
yes,
right? So there were those distinct differences, and it all comes down to tech, right? Technical drawing, technical ability. Now, interior decorator can progress into that, but when you study interior design or interior architecture, you focus on the technical aspects as well. So in that space, I actually worked with more males in the year that I worked, because I only worked for a year, so I must preface that, right? But I still have a lot of friends and connections and, college mates or university mates in that space. So when I was studying at Inscape, yes, I was one of 3 men in a class of, I think we were 16, if I'm not wrong. So there's 3 guys. So when you look at it from that perspective, yes, it looked female or woman or, dominated. But actually it's because a lot of guys were trading as interior architects, right? So you didn't always see them. And as an interior architect, usually what you do in those traditional firms is you'd hire the decorator to do the execution. So now if you come onto, when you come onto the premises or the residence or the office, you would generally see the decorator doing the wallpaper, the scatter cushions, positioning the furniture. But the interior architect had chosen all of those things in the background and had consulted with the decorator to execute. So it was those kind of dynamics. So even when I worked, you would have never seen me at the buildings or, whether it was an office or a home or whatever. I mean, I worked on a hotel. You weren't going to see me on the floor there, putting the pictures on the wall. No, we had people that did that execution. So that's kind of sometimes, whereas the decorator is completely the person you see. They are moving the furniture.
Putting
They're
the
shifting
flower
the stuff.
pots this way, doing that. That is actually very mind-blowing. It's actually eye-opening. I didn't know there was that much of a distinction between an interior designer and an interior decorator. But now that you're speaking about some of how everyone has a place also in how that system works, I want to kind of hone in on that just a little bit, because I know you also do some volunteer work. And I wanted you to talk about how important it was to volunteer in marketing and in sales and in doing some of, the work that you wanted to do, but volunteering first. What kind of effect did that have in your overall career journey at this point?
So it's an interesting thing, right? Because I don't want to knock anyone. But one of the things I started to find, especially with friends and family around me who were starting their own businesses, right? Marketing, digital marketing, online marketing, social media marketing, print marketing, whatever it is expensive. And the people that you would hire bill at a high rate. And I often found that friends, family, organizations didn't always consider the cost. So you're always trapped in this space where you have to ask yourself, okay, fine, this is an NGO, this is a friend, this is a family member who's trying to start a business. If I bill them my normal rate based on my skill and my profession, they can't afford me. Can't afford me, right? So a lot of what I would do is I'd sit with people and just be like, look, let me give you a basic marketing plan for what you're going to do for your organization. From everything from the social perspective, digital, print, whatever. Here are the ins and outs, the crevices, here are the kind of people you can speak to get some pro bono stuff in a magazine or whatever. And give people that kind of advice, because these days if you go on social media, almost every second, third, or fourth ad is a marketing company saying, hey, you need us to get you 5 million impressions.
Exactly.
And people don't know what is an impression. They just think, oh, snap, that means everybody's going to see
followers and stuff, yeah.
What they don't realize is that Yonaka alone could be 20,000 impressions. Just you, because every time you switch on your phone, you see my ad.
Yeah.
Right? So an impression can mean something, can mean absolutely nothing, depending on the industry you're in, who's seeing it. Because also, when you look at things like Facebook, right, from a marketing perspective, they're built for the US. They're not built for us. Mm-hmm. That's why if you go into, if you're working on Facebook Manager and you're trying to, segment a market, you'll see that it'll show you US earning by street or by residential code. There's nothing that says South Africa.
Yeah.
So now you wind up targeting at a very broad level, which unfortunately means you start speaking to a very broad audience, which means your message isn't always as targeted as you'd like it to be. So that's all those kind of complexities, which if you're a young person and you're starting a business and you're speaking to someone like me, I could bombard you and flabbergast you and, just yo-yo you. And at the end, you're like, oh, no, this guy's a genius. He knows what he's talking about. He has 20,000. Meanwhile, that's the money you need to run the business. And then I give you those impressions. I can easily give you 5 million impressions. That's actually very easy.
Wow.
And then I leave it to 20,000 and I'm happy.
That's crazy. I mean, right now, what you're kind of also drawing my attention to is kind of how vulnerable people getting into not just a specific type of industry, but any industry as young people were so impressionable and maybe even gullible to some extent, and so ready for everything to happen for us that we might even not look at some of the important factors of where do I put my money, where do I invest my time, and when it comes to education as well, so many people are drawn towards the more traditional kind of degrees and the traditional kind of career paths. But I feel like with Inscape Education Group, what you guys are doing, taking something or rather a whole industry of studies that people have looked almost as if it's like just a technical skill.
Yes.
It's kind of and you've accredited these types of studies. Speak to us more about why it was so important to make sure that that's kind of also at the forefront of your marketing.
Yeah. Over the last 3 years, you would have always heard Fourth Industrial Revolution, right? You would have continuously heard things like skills of the future, right? The future of work, 2030. You hear all these things that are just like, okay, where's this stuff going to? And people telling you robots are going to replace us all, right?
Yes.
And if you're an accountant, the robot will do the accounting.
Yes.
But what people don't realize is at the core of everything, and you spoke about traditional careers, right? Well, if you're a lawyer and you use an iPad or a MacBook or whatever, if it's technological, it's been designed. And if it's been designed, the human has been considered. How you engage with that application or the device has been considered by someone. Because when you've got a bad device, right? It frustrates you. When you're on a bad app, it frustrates you, right? You can't see where the on button is. You can't see where home is. You can't see where to pay. That's frustrating, right? And all of those things have to be considered. Design is in everything. So from an Inscape perspective, when we started in 1981, we offered design skills purely, right? Interior design, graphic design, decorating, technical drawing, right? But over the years, we've started to include subjects like digital marketing and ideation, right? So now, when you start going into those spaces, you're talking toward innovation, you're talking to data, you're talking to human-centered design. You're talking to how do people engage with the world around them and the things that make the world around them possible. I always say when I get into campus or when I go to head office and people greet me, and they're like, Thulare, how are you? I'm like, I got a pulse, right? And people are like, man, are you nuts? What do you mean you got pulse? I'm like, no. Try waking up and not breathing. Doesn't make sense. Like, try waking up, I'm woken up, and not breathe. Right? Because if you're not breathing, you're not functioning, right?
Exactly.
Now, I tie that to how we use technology. Let me take your phone away for today.
You can take mine.
Can I?
Yes.
Your world won't fall apart.
No.
It won't. You're probably 1 in a million.
For sure.
Right? Most people cannot live without technology, right? It's permeated into everything. I look at my car, right? I have got myself a little 10-year-old Ford, and I love my Ford. My wife wants me to get rid of it. I'm like, no, because I can fix it with a screwdriver. If I get stuck on the side of the road, I just need a screwdriver. If I go buy these new cars, I got to call an IT expert. Somebody's got to plug something in. Coding has to be done.
There's wires now in the engine parts.
Look, okay? So, but again, all of that is design. All of that has been put in to make the human experience of the object, of the piece of technology smooth. So when we then as Inscape look at what qualifications to bring, so we still have interior design, because guess what? Interior design is being invaded by the fourth industrial revolution, right? We're talking virtual reality. We're talking Roblox. We're talking Matterport. We're talking the stuff that, what's his name? Mr. Facebook was talking about. He wants to create metaverse, right? Zuckerberg, metaverse, right? Yeah, he's coined the word meta, but the whole idea is that you want to live in this virtual world. Well, someone's got to design that. Someone's got to think about space in that world, right? And that's a wonderful place for interior designers to go and flex, because now you don't only have to be constrained by designing for the real world, quote unquote, right? Graphic designers, UX designers, user experience, right? They got to consider those things. How does a person use the technology? How does a person engage with the technology? And then you bring in things like digital marketing and ideation. Now, ideation is a monster.
It sounds like one.
Try explaining that to a parent. All right? Try going to school and saying to
I'm doing
a high school's parent and say, yes, we want to introduce a degree in ideation. And the parent's like, what is ideation?
Is it ideas? What is it?
Yes, it's a degree for thinkers, And then the parent's like, wait, okay, but how? What are they going to do? And you say, no. The whole concept surrounding ideation is the ability to take information, right? Data, convert it to information, and take that information and turn it into visual information, right? So you take the zeros and the ones, the numerical stuff, and you transform it into visual information. And the power of that is that it can aid an organization from the C-suite all the way to the lowest level worker to understand what the organization wants to achieve, what the organization strategizes as its vision and as its mission, as its objectives. It can be used for decision making. Because imagine if I come to you and I just bring a spreadsheet with like in Excel, it starts with A, then B, then C.
All the way.
But you can go to quadruple A, A 8 times. You can just keep going. Right? Now imagine if I could take that data and turn it into visual information where you could see a picture. And that picture, because as human beings, think about it. Letters are pictures.
Yes.
Numbers are pictures. Right?
Everything is a visually based.
Picture.
It's designed.
It's designed.
Yes.
Right? So now if I can package that information and make it a visual cue that anyone can understand, like a stop sign, you don't need to know how to read to recognize that that's a stop sign. Because if the car don't stop, you get hit. Simple. Right? Yes. So, that's the beauty of design. It is so simple, and sometimes we live around it and don't even pay attention to it. But it's in everything. What we wear, what we eat. We're always being hit with messaging, and most of it has been well designed. That's bad design.
Yeah.
That's bad design. Let's be honest, right? But yeah, so that's what we want to do at Inscape. We want to bring design to the masses. And listen, it's not just Inscape. It's a bunch of institutions. But at Inscape, it's a thing we hold dear to us, right? Our mission is a very simple one. Challenge ready, life ready, society ready, work ready. That's important because young people need to be able to find work. So challenge ready, life ready, society ready, work ready. And all of that stems from your ability and your appreciation for the skills that you're learning and how they can impact not just you, but the world around you. And at the core, if design doesn't impact people, who are you doing it for?
Exactly. I mean, everything that you're saying is just making me feel like, I'm innovating, something is happening.
You got to.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly how I feel at the moment. And what you just touched on about how everyone is so obsessed with this concept of a virtual reality, a virtual world, reminds me of a podcast I was listening to where Rob Hersoff was kind of speaking about how he wants to create this whole other South Africa with its own government and its own rules and its own currency and stuff like that. Everyone is so obsessed with the idea of moving on into this new kind of way of living. But in the same breath, I feel like the old way of living still has some value to it. Don't you think as a designer somehow there's a way in which you guys also communicate that gap, that future, bringing the future to the present, but also bringing the past to the present, kind of joining those dots as well?
So look, I mean, over the last 5 years, right, there's been a strong conversation around decolonization, right, in our country. So from an Inscape perspective, we did a deep dive into our curriculum and said, are we still celebrating Le Corbusier, right, in interior design? So Le Corbusier is some dude from Europe. I loved his design style. He was a great influence for me as a student. But I never really got to learn about African designers. I didn't learn about South African designers, right? I didn't understand why do, indigenous people design their homes circular. What does that do? What is the principle? There's a principle. It wasn't just, let's just bring these rondavels and just make them round and everything's cool. There's a principle to it, right? Because if you're going to burn something, it's got to be in the center of the house so the smoke can guard. Why did they not put windows? Temperature control, right? That's why the walls are so thick, right? That's why when when I used to go back to where my grandparents stayed, every now and then, right? Again, I'm not claiming I did it, but you'd see guys patching their homes with cow dung, right? That's a skill. That's a way of building. Where I'm from in the northwest Budibe, the people there build with rocks, right? Yes. These almost limeish looking rocks, and the guys build houses with those things. They can go to 2 stories. That art was getting lost. It was being forgotten. There's been a bit of a revival, right, with it. But again, we can get so lost, to your point, right, in the future of design. And in these virtual spaces that we forget that actually at the end of the day, you still need, let me give it to you this way. You can have your virtual reality, but you're going to house it somewhere, right? You're going to put it in a building. Unless you have virtual reality on the beach, I don't know how you're doing it, but you're going to have to put it in a building, right? You can virtual reality till the cows come home. You got to eat. Something's going to make that food, right? Yes, you can tell me your Uber eats it, but guess what? Even the Uber guy has to ride a scooter to get the food to you, and you're going to have to get out of that virtual world to start chewing. I don't know how you chew in virtual space. But, all of these things have to be met with a sense of compassion, right? Because also, we can get so lost in these things that we forget that what percentage of our country is not rich, is not able to afford these things, is not
the largest
upper middle
Gini
class.
Gap. We've got the largest Gini gap in the world.
Right? So now you ask yourself, what's the point to a degree? Yes, we all want to keep up with the latest trends, and I'm not going to stop anyone and tell anyone not to. I'm going to engage in those things. I engage in those things every day. But we have to have a design ethos that says that we can't leave people behind, right, in our efforts to chase after things. Because guess what? If we don't remember what it means to build a house properly, if we don't think about those things, about climate, about weather, then you're going to be virtual reality while getting a sunburn.
Yay.
Or while your house is getting flooded. Because guess what? Global warming and all these things, they're happening. We're feeling the temperatures we're feeling now, which we usually expect in December, right? You go again. I'm using the Northwest as a reference because in my family there's farming. The rains are expected to be really heavy, which means flooding.
Yeah, very dangerous.
Which means crop loss. So again, we can be all
erosion,
virtual.
All these things.
But we got to eat. And if there's no food, what's the point of being in a virtual space? So, we got to start thinking about sustainability. We got to start thinking about environmental impact. We have to start considering, how do we improve the way we engage with the nature and the world around us, and, bring in practices, whether you're an Inscape in your curricula and in your infrastructure and being deliberate about the adoption of certain SDGs, right? And matters of circularity. Those are important because, again, to the point that you made right at the beginning while I was yammering, which is you can have the virtual, but there's still the real world.
Yes.
And they're codependent.
You can't have one without the other.
You can't. Well, at least the way we've made our world, we can't have one without the other.
At this point, yes. I mean, that's all so many great points, and we have to wrap up. But I wanna finish off because I know with Inscape, your campuses, you're working on going the green way, so to speak. Can you just speak to us a little bit about how important that is, especially with the climate that we're in South Africa? I mean, we're seeing the energy crisis that we're facing right now. I've been doing a little bit of studying on fracking, and it's a lot. I'm only doing a little bit of studying here and there, but what kind of other energy sources are you guys hoping to use on your campuses to kind of make the learning experience, I want to say, separate from the real experience of the rest of the country with the energy crisis?
Well, I'll challenge you in saying that they're not separate. They're all together, right? It's a smorgasbord. It's all in a blender. So what we're doing, in 2021, we became a profiled, what's the right term? We joined the EMF, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, right? The Ellen MacArthur Foundation is obsessed with all things circular economy and circularity. And that basically means once I have a product, I must either keep it in use or I must create a product right at the beginning that can be recycled 100%, right? So that way you don't have to always keep creating things. I mean, you think about plastics, right? You can't recycle most plastics, so you have to keep making new plastics, because if you have ever had a scuffed some Tupperware, you get to the point where you don't like looking at it anymore because it's all scuffed up.
Yeah.
Oil has made it, has dyed it a little bit. So now you
Scratches, yeah.
throw it away and it goes to a dump and lives there for thousands of years. So we were one of the first African institutions to be profiled by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Now we are a member of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And to become a member, they basically went into our curricula. They went into the way we are teaching and some of the exercises that we do, the assignments that our students engage with. They call it pedagogy. Hey, that word.
Pedagogical.
That stuff.
Yes.
But basically, they found that without any prompting, we were considering these things as an institution, right? We have a project called Second Skin, where we challenge interior design students to make fashion garments out of construction materials, right? So we had a student, for example, who made a dress out of cement bags, right? All of that to say is we then made a decision as an organization that if you're going to be a profiled member of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and there's only 3 African institutions, including universities, and we are one of the 3 on the continent that are profiled members, right? If we're going to say this and brag about it and put it on stuff and say, hey, we are with the EMF and all that wonderful stuff, well, you got to live it, right? Because otherwise you're a hypocrite. So what we started doing is, fine, from an academic perspective, the academic team is looking at the curricula and infusing more conversations around decolonization. Because guess what? African design is rich with circularity. It's rich with sustainability, the use of sustainable materials. It's rich within our cultures, right, throughout the continent. So if you study more about African architecture, African design, African aesthetic, you're actually going to find yourself inevitably messing with sustainability, right? And then we're not only doing it in the curricula, but we're doing it with our buildings. So our Stellenbosch campus is in a Green Star rated building. We are tenants there. But our Pretoria campus, we own the campus, right? So we have actually 99% of the way done with converting that campus to be completely off the grid. So solar panels, reduced water usage with like faucets and stuff that that don't just spill out water, but actually spray water more than anything else, right? It's like taking a shower, taking a bath, right? That kind of stuff. Yes. So we're busy with the Pretoria campus, and the aim is to be a Green Star rated campus. So the GBSA grants you a Green Star. They come with a whole bunch of measures that you got to meet. It's intense. So we got to meet those. So we know we're going to get it. We'll be Green Star rated by March. And then we're going to go to our other campuses, and where we're renting, we're going to work with our landlords to be more green. So it's all encompassing. We want to practice this thing.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. And in the final, just a quick statement. How important would you say it is for the rest of the country to just follow suit? And I think more particularly to the institutions. I mean, I go right here in Johannesburg, and we've got massive campuses out here, tertiary campuses, UJ, VIDS, everyone is down here. So I walk around and I've been on the different campuses, and I see that, there's still something left to be done about how green we are and how energy sustainable we are just in general. How important would you say it is for kind of the students to also play a hand in helping their campuses and institutions getting there? We've got these councils, we've got these clubs, but I feel like sometimes we get frustrated with the fact that state is not doing enough, and so we become a little complacent. But the importance thereof and in following suit kind of with what Inscape is going with.
I'll never preach anarchy, but sometimes you don't need to wait, right? As you mentioned, there's clubs, there's groups, there's whatever, right, on a campus. You got to start with your SRCs. You got to start with your school management. Again, in our mission is challenge ready. You got to pick up the challenge, right? And again, by no means are we professing that we're experts at Inscape. We've just started this journey, and anyone who comes to us, we're going to tell you where we are in the journey. We're at 1. Right? We don't know if there's 10 or a million, but we're at 1, right? And we're going to start with the most basic things that we can. So to any young person, to any institution, have conversations. One of the things that we are striving to do more of on our campuses is have more conversations, right? About everything. It doesn't only stop at sustainability practice. It also includes inclusion. There's a number of conversations we need to start having on our campuses. And it's a tough one because at the end of the day, most kids will tell you, man, I'm here to get my degree so I can get that job or start that business because there's people behind me,
Exactly.
you know, and I got to look after them.
Yeah.
And my mother can't be looking after me. I'm 26.
I'm grown now.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know, so there's all of those challenges, but that's it. It's called a challenge. And the truth of success for any nation is young people taking on the challenge, because here's the thing, people keep saying young people must rise up. Well, yes, us young people, and I'm saying that as a 38-year-old, us young people, we must rise up, because in a blink we'll be 60 saying young people must rise up.
Exactly.
So there'll never be an end to young people.
Someone has to rise
But
up.
we just have to keep rising and hope that we rise enough to inspire the previous generation as the ones that rose up before us inspired us.
Little by little.
You know, and we just keep working at it.
Wow. I really honestly couldn't have said it better. Thank you so much. That was an awesome conversation. This is Mr. Thulare Matlaba. He is the Global Brand Manager at Inscape Education Group. And we just had an awesome conversation about the importance of what it means for youth to just activate, innovate, and become a part of society, become a part of something a little bigger than yourself. And Inscape is doing that by being more sustainable as well. It's been an awesome one. My name is Yonaka Theledi. I am a news presenter on 5FM, 5 weekend afternoons, and I'll catch you there every Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. giving you the news. Stay safe.
Yeah, I can't do no small talk, no small talk. I'm not with the small talk. Can't be with the small talk.